Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'd say that's good afternoon to my fellow Brits and our European neighbours since Brexit, I have to say that. And of course, it's good morning to my friends and colleagues and associates in the States. Um, Actually, I set the time for this webinar on the basis of it being hopefully a good time for both UK and for US participants, because that's primarily the reaction that we've had. But we've got a couple of hundred people who've signed up for that, and hopefully a good proportion of those will show up. For those who can't show up, a copy of the recording or a link to the recording will be sent out. But I'm really looking forward to this for a number of reasons that I'm going to go into. We've got an hour for this, so I'm going to set off. I'm going to set off now underway, and then we'll just hopefully deal with things as we go. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. I'm going to keep an eye on the questions, but I'll refer to that again. But anyway, let's start and get ourselves underway. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Yeah, so I've been really excited to do this webinar. Since the pandemic, I started doing webinars. I started with the LTSMG, and welcome to my friends and colleagues of those. The Learning and Teaching Spaces Management Group is the UK-based organisation for the technology and AV managers on universities, it has just been that a number of threads, a number of paths have all led to this area, and I just wanted to say a couple of words about why I'm doing this. So a particular event that led me to do this was that my friend and colleague Owen Ellis, who runs the AV user group, it's an international group, and many of you will be a member or know about this. He also started to run a consultant group, and Owen asked me to co-present an event with him at Lord's Cricket Ground last year, when we were one of the first times we got let out of one of our lockdowns. And it was really fascinating there to hear the consultants saying how their experience is that there was kind of a mad rush, a kind of lemming-like rush to install hybrid spaces, but at a time before people really understood, or still now even yet to understand exactly what the workflows are going to be, what the requirements are going to be. This is a whole new space for us, but it's also a pivotal moment. The world has changed and it will not go back. Hybrid meetings are here to stay. Very few of us, but certainly those who are on this webinar, will be attending the office 5 days a week, if hardly at all. Another background to this is that I lead the standard steering committee of AVIXA. So we kind of run and maintain the standards, and we've been running quite an extended strategy review. And another thing became apparent during our discussions, which was that during the course of last year and this flip to hybrid spaces, we up until then we've been really successful in getting people to adopt standards and to use them, but partly as a result of the rush, partly as a result of the fact that it had to be done urgently, but also because I think standards were seen to be quite difficult to use, and the kind of knotty problems that you get in Teams rooms and hybrid spaces. that they weren't really adopted, and so there is a real issue of relevance, if you like, a task upon Avixa, I think, to make our standards relevant to hybrid spaces, and that's something I'm going to talk about today. And another thing that led us to this spot is that I was challenged by a colleague to start writing a daily LinkedIn post, which I started to do at the beginning of December. And pretty soon, apart from me putting up funny videos about using meters and some of my more kind of nerdy aspects, that everything, I got some massive reactions to posts I made about hybrid spaces. I've had tens of thousands of views, hundreds of comments, almost exclusively very nice as well, and some great questions. And so that kind of led to this, which is my first webinar on this subject. So this is me. I am I'm a director and owner of Visual Displays. We formerly ran under the name of Paradigm. Visual Displays is a trade-only organisation. So we actually sell our services and products and so forth through the reseller channel. But we do have very good relationships with end users, consultants and specifiers. Personally, I consult in my specialist areas, that is to say standards, displays, light and lighting, particularly VC lighting, and teaching and meeting space design. And this has really come into focus now, since the pandemic and since this big focus on hybrid spaces has come. One thing I do need to say, though, very directly, I'm not an AV consultant. And I have to say that because apart from the AV consultants, many consultants are my friends, AV consultants are very often directly or indirectly my clients. So I'm kind of a specialist and a hired gun that gets used for doing that. I've also done this sort of work for the likes of Google, the UK Cabinet Office, and various commercial operations. And I really enjoy my consultancy work that I do because I jokingly say I get paid to learn things, and that actually is not a joke at the moment, because I think we're all in a real learning curve, very sharp learning curve to do with hybrid spaces, and I feel I'm sucking up information and learning stuff, like a sponge at the moment. So I currently lead Avixa's Standards Steering Committee, SteerCo as we call ourselves. I've been extensively involved in either leading or writing standards. Most of the standards that I'm talking about today, I've been directly or indirectly involved with their production. One thing that there's been a real change for me has been being involved in another new standard we're writing, which is the user experience design for AV. And I'll come back to that because I think that will be a significant thing, and definitely a very significant thing for hybrid spaces and planning and designing them. I've been involved with the leadership of Infocom as we were, and Avixa as we are, and I was very proud to serve as president back in 2012, which now seems a long way away. But anyway, that's for me. But one thing I want to say about the way that I work with standards is that for me, it's a reverse engineering process. Is that what it is that you need to identify what the delivered experience needs to be. But for me, a really important part of that is to get to the point where you can actually describe that in measurable metrics, where you can actually describe that in measurable attributes, because that's the way that you can actually start to really make significant steps forward. Right, I'm going to launch a poll now, because it would be really nice to know who is on the call. I'm going to launch that now. So basically, I mean, just looking at the registration, I'd just like us to be clear about that. I'm going to try and keep this pretty interactive. I'm going to keep an eye on the on the chat and on the questions. I'll try and take a break every now and again and see if there's anything there that I can answer. If there's anything too difficult, I'm going to pretend I haven't seen it. But seriously, even if I can't address anything that comes up today or any questions that come up, I will deal with them after the event. We've got about an hour here, and I'm going to try and wrap up, inside the hour so that I've got some time to attend to that. But we'll take that one as we come. I kind of know that a lot of my friends and colleagues from higher ed are here and other people, but it would just be quite interesting and helpful for all of us. And I think it'll help me in terms of any impromptu comments, of which there will be a lot. It'll help me do that. So I think we've got as many as we're going to get. Actually, no, there's still a couple of people doing it. So let me just get my first swig of water, gin. And yeah, let's end the poll and see what we've got. So we've got 24% of us higher ed, further ed end users, as I expected. 30% consultants and designers and specifiers. 18% was 20% manufacturers and distributors, and about the same of integrators and resellers. So this is pretty much as expected. I'm going to really pitch this from an end user perspective. Because I think the thing about what I'm trying to do here is to think of it from a user perspective. Okay, let's make a move. So let's think about standards. I kind of mentioned to you already that within AVIXA, I think that we recognise that things have changed in standards and the application with regards to hybrid spaces. Now, one thing I would make really clear here is that I'm speaking personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of AVIXA. I'm not speaking on behalf of STEERCA, the steering committee. These are very much my own views, and I just want to make that 100% clear. But having said that, I do have strong views about it, and we have kind of discussed that. I believe I use standards in my daily life, and I use it in my work life, and that it's kind of natural to me. And I do feel really strongly that what we have to do, and what I should be working to do, is is to make the standards that we do have far more accessible. I think another reason that standards haven't been used in hybrid spaces is that they're seen as being problematical. But I think that quite often it might be that the camera position, for example, interferes with the image height or the image position, and it's a bit of a knotty problem. And so, okay, let's forget that. Let's just get the room in and do the thing. But the way I see it is that this is actually this is part of the process where, in these cases, you have to establish what I call a hierarchy of needs. So you've got to work out what the order of priorities are, and then that helps you then filter down, break the standards issue into their discrete components, and to use them. Another background to this is that I was asked to write an article for AV Magazine just before Christmas. And that got a huge response. Guy Campos, the editor, the deputy editor, kindly asked me to do that. Put a nice sort of kind of spiky title on it. And also what I used as a kind of a basis for this, or as one of the main reference pieces, is this really great document that Microsoft have produced, bringing Microsoft Teams to your meeting rooms. When I send the slides out after this, there'll be links to all of these. But this was a genuine piece of thought leadership by Microsoft. I feel, obviously other brands are available, Zoom, Google, and so forth. But I think the mark of true thought leadership is that it's actually effectively brand agnostic, and it was a really useful tool to focus the mind around. So I'm going to, actually, I need to just do one thing here. I'm just going to come out and come back in again. Excuse me. I need to just share to ensure I can get the video going properly. There we go. Back again. I'm just going to play this video that is on the Microsoft YouTube channel, and I think that kind of helps set the scene. It's a minute and a half, but I think it's actually a really helpful thing to see. So here we go.
Today's Microsoft Teams rooms bridge the gap between in-person and remote meeting attendees, providing everyone high-quality, inclusive experiences. Going forward, these rooms will deliver more natural and immersive experiences for hybrid work. The focus room will evolve to connect in-person and remote attendees in a more unified experience, with a larger screen where interactions feel more natural as you sit face-to-face across from life-size remote colleagues, a camera placed at eye level to improve eye contact, spatial audio so you hear people's voices from their position on the screen, and to enrich real-time collaboration, meeting chat notes and actions will be at the forefront of all Teams rooms. Larger rooms with more attendees make it challenging for people working remotely to know who is present and who's talking. Teams rooms will deliver a meeting experience where everyone is fully represented and connections feel natural. We have reimagined the meeting room to bring people face-to-face with remote colleagues and unlock more space for people, content, and collaboration. Technology will fade to the background, with premium microphones hidden in the ceiling. Intelligent camera technology will bring in-room participants clearly into view through individual video streams. And spatial audio will help remote participants establish presence with a virtual seat in the room. All so that you have more authentic connections with everyone in the meeting. Our vision for meetings is about leveling the playing field for everyone, where remote and in-person attendees are represented equally and everyone can collaborate without compromise.
Okay, well, hopefully everybody got that. But I think that is it's a great little video. I think that Microsoft there do set out the vision for what we all want and need from these spaces, with an emphasis on a feeling of authenticity, a feeling of connection, also a kind of a given, an implicit given, how getting the hardware right is absolutely essential. And these basic calls, which is my particular thing, are really mission critical. And we all saw the rush of all of the rooms going in last year before people knew what's needed, and before the workflows are established. And I think that that's a very helpful setting out. And I think there are themes here which I'm going to try and draw out during the session of how important it is to take a holistic approach, and how important it is to think about future-proofing the spaces as far as possible. So absolute key to all of this in the space is size. Size really matters with the displays. If you don't get the size right, the people at the second half of the room won't be able to see, and all of the rest of the kit, all the rest of expenditure is really at risk from having done that. So that's absolutely key. And at this point, I think one posting I made that got a lot of reaction was talking about the whole thing of twin displays. Now, I'm going to be opinionated in this, and I make no apologies for that, because I think I want to be stimulating. Personally, I'm not a big fan of twin displays. I do understand they have a part to play, but I think that the issues that I have, and if we look at this Microsoft example, helps to highlight it. I've drawn in plan view, I've drawn a blue line down the center of each of those monitors. Now, whether it's a twin or a single display, again, going back to the display size 101, it's really important that we get the image size right, so that the people at the back of the table can see the content. And with twin displays, you've got kind of two dynamics pushing against each other there, because on the one hand, go for the displays that are as large as possible, but of course the larger the displays are, the wider the overall display array becomes. And if you see here, I mean, in this graphic, it's just a graphic, I understand, but the center point of each display basically hits the line of viewers. The table here is actually slightly wedge shaped, which is a good bit of planning. But nevertheless, you've got the issue where the wings of the display, the actual sides of the display, can be masked by the participants, the in-room viewers, and it will mask the view of people at the back of the room. But this is an example of the kind of these sorts of seemingly contradictory drivers, and as I say, it comes back to what I feel are establishing the hierarchy of needs that are there. Another point to kind of drill in on that. Now, we use the DISCAS standard, which sets image size, image position, image resolution, viewing angles, and so forth. By the way, I run courses on these, which have a CTS renewal point. So if anyone, any organisation or team wants me to do that, I'm very happy to do that. Now, a thing to say, and again, relating to what I was saying about using standards critically. What we're gonna see as we go through this is that we're moving to effectively a picture-in-picture situation with hybrid spaces, where we're going to have a content window where you've got the main content, might be an Excel sheet, might be some sort of complicated bit of PowerPoint or something like that, and that will be a window within the overall image size. Now, the DISCAS, that there is, that you can see in a lot of hybrid spaces that the displays have been placed too high. Having said that, I think that my feeling about this is, in most cases, is that this rule about the closest viewing position should apply to the main content window rather than the stuff above, because I think that you need to think about what are the focus, what are the items that people are going to focus on, and the kind of the ergonomics and the room use, the user experience focus needs to be taken from that respect. So that's an example of how we kind of finesse that. So just taking a bit of a closer look at that. That this is a small section from the Microsoft front row concept piece that was in that document that we just mentioned. Now, in DISCAS, the normal default is to use this 3% element height, which equates to the 6-to-1 rule. And that means that if, say, the image height is 1 meter, then the farthest viewer should be no more than 6 meters away. But in the case where there's a content window, then we need to apply that rule to the window, and that makes a big change to the size of image that's required. So again, as was as was actually put explicitly in that video and in the Microsoft thought piece, is that projection is going to play a big part in the future of hybrid spaces. Now I can hear an intake of breath as I say that, but I'm going to take that one head on as we go through the next few slides. So the way that we see it in visual displays is we see it in terms of the displays continuum. That's what we call it, where you have the flat panel displays, which are currently available up to around 98 inches, but typically there's kind of a flip over somewhere about the 90 inch mark, where you then have projection. You'll see I very specifically refer to it as ALR, laser projection. That's ambient light rejection, laser projection. We'll come back to that. And then above that, an overlap with DV-LED screens, with direct view LED screens. Now, the real point about this is that projection will play a significant role in hybrid spaces, and any room of about 6 meters or above, that's really in the projected image area, and I'm gonna talk to that a little bit more directly. So 2022 is the year of projection done properly. These two photos here have got one thing in common. They were taken with a ratty little iPhone, and they're unretouched. Every campus or estate has one or two of those sort of embarrassing illustrations of projection there, where the ambient light is washing it out. That one was measured actually under 2:1. And this is a project that we consulted on and installed through Kinley for Glasgow University, a fantastic project that we were able to do through lockdown. We've got 30 odd displays there, but that's using ambient light rejecting laser projection. That is projection done properly. That is projection, well above the 15:1 minimum that's required in the standard. And that is a kind of an example of how it's possible to do it properly. Another factor in projection, which is actually very current for me, is the kind of environmental and sustainability issues. I've got, again, through one of the integrators, I'm working on a project for a large famous merchant bank to do a large projected signage display in the reception area. Now, what they wanted to do was a DV-LED screen, but the facilities management said, no, you can't do that. It uses too much power, emits too much heat, and that goes beyond the tariff that we set for the building. And the other part about using projection is that the projectors and the screens, they can be much more future-proof. As projectors technology improves, the screen can stay and the projectors can be upgraded. And DV-LED screens, they have a great deal of potential to play in this, but it's a specialist area and much more expensive than you'd think, because the only opportunities for applications with serious content needs to be very high resolution and low luminance. So this is an example of optical projection screens. There's the other thing about doing it properly is this kind of inversion from what people classically have thought to do. The way to do projection properly is to select the screen material first, and then do the maths to actually select the projector. There are a number of calculators and formulae that are there. I'm very happy to share the calculators. They're all there on the Visual Displays website. However, we do that for you. We do that for our clients. I'm just going to quickly show an example of the material here. Hope I get this right. So this is an example of an ambient light rejecting material. It's usually on a rigid plate normally, but this is not a coated material. This is a nanotechnology. So that's the side that faces the projector. This works with ultra short throw projectors. which are actually particularly relevant for this, which I'll come back to there. And this material is really quite remarkable. But I'll go back to sharing now. Okay. So the Microsoft front row concept, which is in that document, I really commend you to have a look at that. But I think there's a whole lot to unpack there, and a lot of really useful stuff. Way more that we can go into here. But I think the point to make about this display is that it's a large canvas. It's a digital canvas. It's got very low luminance and very high black levels, and that speaks to the actual user needs that are wanted. Here you can see it. I think this must be somewhere in Washington State, somewhere on one of the Microsoft campuses there. But there you can see it in a bit more depth. There are two projectors there. They're using a kind of a wide angle projector rather than an ultra wide angle projector. We'll come back to that in a minute, and you can see the VC camera there. Now, what we're doing about that is that within visual displays, is that we are making these displays moving up, firmly into sort of clear blue water above the 100-inch mark of the flat panel displays. We're using UST lenses because a number of factors coalesce around that. These are standalone units, so they have zero impact when they go into a room. As standard, we do them as 120-inch and 140-inch, but we also do them as bespoke. In my work in simulation, we've been making displays like this into a much higher level, and those sorts of disciplines have gone into making these displays. And as you can see, they can have the VC camera fitted on them as well. But I'm going to go into that now a little bit more deeply, because another thing that I got a lot of reaction on was posting about a VC camera position. Now, I think the thing is that by moving up to what we call the digital canvas, so moving up to a larger screen size, gives us a number of opportunities. So one thing that we've been working on with DMP is that because the angle of projection is so acute with ultra short throw, that means that we can drill a hole in the screen. Because the screen is so much larger, a small hole is actually much less perceptible, behind which we can mount a small camera. And also, when you move to the larger canvas, and if you think about on that Microsoft front row, we've got the array of smaller thumbnails of the remote participants. I think there's now the opportunity to move a small form factor camera in front of the screen. That's a big subject, a subject that I'm doing a lot of work on. But another part of that is it kind of liberates for me what's a really important element, which is getting the vertical position of the screen. So that's the height of the bottom of the image from the floor, actually optimized, particularly when you're thinking about getting remote participants somewhere near life size. The other part about another part about using projectors is that yes, it can be done like this in this Microsoft Vision piece illustration. But from an aesthetic point of view, I think it's preferable to hide them away. I think if we can have a whizzy space, lovely aesthetic space, I think having a couple of projectors hanging off the ceiling, could detract from the experience. I think having doing this in a kind of credenza style unit fits the ethos of it much more. But looking at it as a particular, you can see another element to this, which kind of speaks to the changes that are going to be in in the way that the actual screens are laid out. And I was talking to another client this morning, actually at another merchant bank, coincidentally, and she was saying it's like the world now of going back to the days of having multiple codecs. We're going to need. I think we're going to see the need, at least short term, of having multiple streams going into a digital canvas like this. Whether it's in wide format or whether it's in conventional 16:9. But the way that we configure systems like this, there are a couple of main ways of doing it, but we do it one of the two, which is to use an external hardware box. And what this means is that you can feed in multiple sources and then arrange the windows accordingly. A big subject there, but the thing is that we're completely ready to do all levels of Microsoft Front Row, as and when that interface, as and when that environment develops. One thing that I'd like to highlight in terms of the design considerations in room spaces is that it's really important to understand there's a huge difference between how we see light, how we perceive things, and how light actually is, how you measure it, how it's photographed. And our eyes the human visual system is a very powerful piece of processing that it is important to understand when you kind of plan to deploy these spaces. You looking at me, I'm actually upside down on the back of your retina, with the way that the lens works, and our visual processing system, your visual processing system, is flipping me back the right way up, if that's what you think, and that kind of speaks to it. But I just wanted to use this example, very famous example by Professor Adelson in the States, and so what you can see the statement here is that the square marked A is the same shade of grey as the square marked B, and that's virtually, well, that is impossible in my eyes to see that. But if you then go to the proof piece where you actually have the a color bar running through at the same color, you can actually see that. And the reason for that is visual cues, and I'll come back to this concept of cues in a moment when I talk about simulation. But there are visual cues there to do with the shadow and to do with the other objects there that direct our visual response to see that as being a checkerboard in the way that we do. I mean, that's a bit of fun, but I think it makes a powerful point. And speaking to that point a little bit more, just going to talk about resolution for a moment, image resolution. Now, strictly speaking, according to DISCAS and according to basic human acuity, even on a very large screen, HD resolution is absolutely fine. But that applies to static images, to PowerPoint, to Excel, whatever it is. The way, coming back to our human visual system, the way our visual system works is that the visual acuity for moving objects is a composite. So as something moves, then more information is being added. And in fact, the way that we see things is actually in very high resolution. So what that means, I could gladly talk about that for a long time, but what that means is that, thinking forward, I mean, at the moment, the quality of a video feed, say for the thumbnails for the individual participants, because it's coming through a single stream, it's very compressed, is really very low. But looking to the medium and short-term future, obviously one of the big steps forward will be to get these individual feeds at much higher resolution. And when they're moving, that's the case. So in fact, the use of a 4K, well, UHD, of course, to be accurate, is actually very important. And just as a practical point at the moment, because I've been mentioning projection, at the moment in practice for commercial and technical reasons, the so-called pixel shifted 4K, which is not true native 4K, but it's a It's a 4K that's created by mechanical movement of the optical components. That is good enough. It works, and it works very well. And I'm very happy with that. Happy to use that pending the arrival of native 4K, 8K, and so forth. Again, talking to our visual systems, this I posted about this, and this got a lot of reaction. Now, I'm not going to go into this in great detail. I'm going to refer to it. There's way too much to cover in this short session. He said, keeping an eye on the clock. So unfortunately, eye strain is very often designed into a room, completely inadvertently, but it is designed in. And the reason for that is that the displays are too bright. Now, there's a spreadsheet here, and I'm not going to go into it, but there again, that's part of the workings that we do, and that we will do. We do on your behalf. The concept here is that as our eyes move from object to object, we have our lens is held by the ciliary muscle, which is a muscle which is expanding and contracting to adjust the lens, and also to adjust the amount of light that hits the back of our retina, so that we don't get blinded, or there's enough there for us to see. And if we have to look from a light object to a dark object repetitively, that is the thing that causes eye strain. And the technical metric of that is task luminance ratio. Task is the fancy word for the thing that we're looking at. It might be, your neighbor, it might be the screen, it might be the printed paper in front of you. But suffice it to say that if you do the math, displays need to be much less bright than is thought. Somewhere around 300 nits, some 300 candela per square meter is actually typically the kind of level that you need. And the other thing, which is effectively hinted at by those images that mocked up on the Microsoft front row piece, is that it's actually the black levels that's the driver of all this. You need to have really, really good black levels, and that's why I loop back to the thing about using the correct ambient light rejecting screen materials. So just going to make a few comments here about simulation. So in my background, we also design simulators and immersive displays. And within simulation, we think in terms of cues. And so, what are the sensory cues that allow us to suspend our disbelief, to fully engage? And so, at a high level, we need remote and local participants to be able to communicate as if they're in the same physical space. And you can think of cues as in two sorts of formats. One of the positive cues, it might be someone is life size, it might be that it's something, it's very realistic, that sort of is an enabler of the performance. And you can think of them as negative things. One of them might be, so if you think of the kind of classic phenomenological analysis tool, and you imagine the a mythical Martian walking into a room, looking at a flat panel display up on the wall, and thinking, well, why is that person stuck in that shiny aquarium up high on the wall? So thinking in these terms and breaking it down into these elements, that simulation brings a lot to this, and that there's a lot of science that an experience and IP that we have that we bring to the making of these displays. Implicit in this whole subject of the room is lighting, and this is a very difficult subject for AV professionals, because very often it's something that seems to be outside people's control, and particularly in larger organizations where everybody's very siloed, as I've talked about. then then it can be very difficult, because you can have effectively one department paying good money on the fittings and the electricity to shine bright lights on the display that you're putting in, trying to give a good experience, ruining the good experience you're trying to give to your users. This it's not a standard as such. It's a best practice or a recommendation document, a guide document, co-put out by AVIXA and the Institute of Illuminating Engineers in America, which is the equivalent to my professional body in the UK, SIBC, Society of Light and Lighting, and that has got a whole bunch of really valuable metrics in it. The lighting is vitally important, because apart from anything else, apart from the experience in the room itself, is a really good camera will deliver really rubbish performance under inappropriate lighting. So the lighting is the key to unlocking a space, both for the in-person and the remote participants. Also, while we're on the subject, a particular bugbear of mine is that basically displays work, and I think specifying them, when I work in this, I regard that as really quite a simple thing, but it's an empirical thing, it's a practical thing. Is that by and large, obviously, if you use a commercial grade, a professional grade display, in terms of functionality, tick the box. But why on earth do you use displays with shiny screens? If you walk around your estate, your campus, whatever it is, and have a look at the screens, it's like Pandora's box. I promise you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that because of the specular nature of the reflection of that, it can cause really quite what's called disability glare, even for viewers in particular positions of the room relative to other sources of light. That's my little rant over. So just talking about this, then the balancing of the lighting of the display, there are standards, there are for both the lighting and both the display, and there are methodologies about hooking these up. And again, I'll come back to that when I talk about the well building standard. These are vital if you're going to do this thing properly. This is a vital part of the mix. So I'm just going to take a quick swig of water here and just look at the questions to see if there's anything I can handle immediately. All of those I will need to answer, with the exception of you, Chris Fitzsimmons. And by the way, thank you for your lovely comments on the post. Yes, I will be sending out the slides after the event. And yes, Tom Kerr, Martians are not mythical; they are my best friends as well as yours. Well, all I can say is you're a nice bunch, and I'm not going. There's nothing particular I'm going to talk to at this point. Again, Chris, you've asked some other questions there, which I will respond to. Yeah, and Long Nguyen, I think that the question about the camera position in screen, that's a good point. But I'm going to be doing other webinars after this, which hopefully we'll be able to go into some depth. And one of the reasons asking you to get into this chat is that I want some guidance from you, either now during this or after this, about what would be helpful to take a deeper dive on. This has to be a very quick skate through a very big subject, but I'm just trying to join up the pieces for you, and I hope that this is being helpful. He said to a captive audience, well, semi-captive. So I've mentioned the new UX standard that AVIXA is writing. This is quite a revolutionary concept for most AV practitioners, and actually involves this concept called talking to the users, which by and large doesn't happen. There are, of course, some honourable exceptions. But actually, basic the principles of UX design, of talking to the users, asking open questions, doing ideation sessions, and thinking about the whole thing as being an iterative process is key to that. But the other thing is that we've got a couple of really outstanding practitioners of UX with very different experiences. For those of you in the States, hopefully you will know of Lisa Perrine of Cibola Systems. She's got a doctorate in education. She's a really smart and lovely person. And she's massively experienced, and she does a lot of very, great teaching as a volunteer for Avixa on her design thinking courses. She has made some very interesting observations here, which I think we would invite her to participate in future webinars or to indicate what it is that she's saying. Another person is my friend and colleague here in the UK is Adam Banks. He was formerly one of the guys who ran the UX for Google, not at the same time as I was doing my stuff there, but he's now got a separate business doing a UX laboratory equipment, and he's got some incredible IP there. But as a practical step, I would just say that there's I think for any organization of a certain size of above, it's absolutely essential that you have one or more spaces that you can use for developing ideas. I think there are a huge amount of progress that's available to be made, and I think there are actual IP opportunities, particularly for universities, taking UX principles and to design the layout and the templates around the hybrid teaching experience. Another thing I would say is that what you have to do, and I'd say this in a very black and white way, without apologies, is that once you think about UX, you can get people can and do get very enthused about it because it's a great thing. Having said that, I do believe that you need to engage with a third party to do this. What happens in practice is although you start doing the process, is that organizations, you can't help it, you kind of revert to type. And what you do need is you need to pay someone to keep you honest, to hold you accountable, and to keep you flowing through. There are a lot of different types of AV practitioners, but again, talk to me if you want to take that further, because I'll be very delighted to share my experience and talk to you about it. Okay, so getting towards the end of the show here. I want to talk about another standard here, which is the well building standard, and particularly the new version, the version 2. So the International Well Building Institute has this standard, and it's absolutely fantastic because first of all, it's predicated on the basis that of creating a healthy spaces for people to live and work in, and of course that has really come to pass. And now that building owners and employers have to make they need to be able to demonstrate to their occupants that these spaces are fit for purpose, they're healthy, they're nice, they're pleasurable places to be in. But beyond, if you like, that hippie speak, if I'm just to be humorous about it, what's fantastic about it is that they've pulled the good things from all the environmental standards. So in my case, the lighting guides that we use from SIBSI and the Society of Light and Lighting, and the equivalent is the IS in the States, and so that they talk to, for example, to task luminance ratio. With that hook, we can hook in the AV standards, and that means that we can have a direct link into that, and that links up a very concrete way of linking up the lighting to the displays and to the rest of the room. The other thing about it, from a tactical, if you like, or political perspective, it's a really powerful way to engage with senior management. and the other stakeholders. One of the tasks, the implicit tasks of AV, or the problems of AV, is to get to sit at the table with the grown-ups at the earliest stage of the project, to sit with the architect, to sit with the owners, right at the front end of a project, and not in sort of second or third phase of it. And this is a way of engaging it. Now, the projects that I've been involved with that have used well have been absolute game changers. And one of the reasons for that is that there are positive drivers, because the owners will actually save money and make more money by using well, because when their buildings are demonstrably better than anybody else, they can get higher rents, they can get better occupancy. But from a practical perspective, the architects, they, to get to score highly in well, the AV can actually give them the various extra points that they need to get their awards and to get their higher points. So it's a very practical thing. I'm engaging with the Well Institute at the moment about these standards, and it's a real passion of mine, as I hope you can hear. And that is something that I should be engaging with much more this year, and because there's particular relevance to hybrid spaces here. Okay, so I've really hosed you down here, kind of not really sorry, just because I think that this is really important, and I was just trying to join the pieces together for you. But just to kind of think about the key takeaways to all of this. Having a holistic approach to this is absolutely essential. You need to think of the hybrid space as being a completely interdependent system. That includes the walls, the color, the reflectivity, the same for the furniture, the lighting, the displays. Everything has an impact on each other, and that will be the way that the potential of these spaces gets unlocked. And again, that the well standard can be a practical step in doing that, and if like a fresh thing that you can take to senior management or to other stakeholders. And it also helps you it also is very important that you need, but nevertheless, although I'm talking very generally, I hope that during the presentation you've kind of seen how important it is to identify what the individual component elements are and to strategize for each of those. The use of AV standards, that is absolutely critical, but they do need to be, and you should adopt them to your needs. So any end users, that you should ask your consultants or your integrators to use that, but I will help and advise on that. We work to their meat and drink for them. But the idea is you get to the point of having individual performance metrics for each. You need to think about future-proofing your space, because the needs and the workflows are not yet established. You need to think about, definitely have got to get the image size right. That a step change increase in the expectation and what actually happens there. The Microsoft piece, I think, which is so good, was talking to creating authentic and natural experiences for both the in-person and remote users, and I hope that we've spoken to that during this presentation. It's vital to get the technology right, and it's also vital to avoid the many pitfalls that are there in terms of eye strain, reflective screen surface, and so forth. I'm not going to have time to deal with the Q&A now. I want to be respectful of your time, but we've had a great turnout for this, and I'm so grateful for everyone for doing that. I will carefully note all of the questions and comments, and particularly thinking about how to respond to it. Please send me any requests for any particular materials you want as follow-up. I will send out the presentation and some other associated materials and links for further reading. Thanks again for attending to this. I'm going to stick around after the hour to look at the questions. I'll keep myself online, so if there's anything that we can chat about with some of the questions, some of the chat, be very happy to do that. But I just want to say thanks once again for doing that. This is the first of the other webinars I'll be doing, but please talk to me about anything that comes up. I'll be delighted to talk to you more, because this is a big passion for me. So thank you very much. Right, for those of you who are sticking around, let's have a little look at the chat to start with. Well, mostly it's a lot of you being very kind, but we will record all of the chat. Very happy to see all my friends from various campuses. A bunch of you from Strathclyde, Cambridge, Dublin. I'll go on. Chris Fitzsimmons showing that he knows his stuff. So Harold Steindl, edge blending could be integrated directly into the engine. Yes, it could, and I think that's the way it will go. There's an issue. For the moment, I try and keep things modular with having the blend box external. Also, I find that if you use the if you use data capture, video capture cards, you can have an issue of latency, and I just try and keep things very simple. So Leslie Beckman from Google, hi Leslie. Martin said that you would be on. How is the projector fan noise minimized in the rooms? Well, that's another reason why. I mean, fan noise is basically better with laser projectors, but that's another reason why I like to put the projectors in a credenza unit using the ultra short throw lenses. So Rene Guillermo are asking about the kind of computer that's needed. That is beyond my pay grade, but I think there are some people from Intel on the call, and no doubt that'll be some feedback that we get. In fact, I can see that Chris Fitzsimmons is all over you already, so that should be possible. So I'll leave that to you, Chris. I don't know if you're still on. And thank you for the kind comments, everyone. That's really nice to see. It's been a real pleasure to do this. Yeah, I will be sending out the presentation. Probably take out a few typos before I do, but that will probably go out tomorrow or Monday. Stuart, thanks. I'm glad that will help you with your Stuart Mitchell. I'm glad your green build project. My friend Pete from Delft, very happy to see you. Thanks for that comment. Okay. Well, love it. Let's have a look at the questions. Yeah, so someone has put a thing in about the window height as opposed to the image height, and making the point that the content will change. So wouldn't you need to change the image height? Well, I think the thing is that that's why I feel very strongly for future proofing. The best you can do, it might be the least worst thing that you can do, is to have a very generous image height, and then just be prepared to move the window, place the window, according to it. I think that one of the things that that's being talked about, apart from, if you like, the display, is that in order for the experience to become authentic, is that that organizations need to have a house style for how the screen is laid out, the kind of like a room view up there, a chat up there, whatever it is. And so there's a thing about consistency, there's a thing about conditioning people to basically to have that authentic experience. And someone's asked if we're going to have a revival of native 21 to 9 projectors. I don't think so, because I think, again, thinking about my work in simulation, that's about using COTS components, commercial off-the-shelf components, and and I think that using the kind of the mainstream of projectors and adapting them for use in these things is the way forward. I think in certain OEM cases or in certain particular cases, then definitely that would be the case. Never say never, but as a basic principle, I think the use of COTS components are really important. And David Sidebottom, I don't know if he's still on, was asking about the specifics of mounting cameras in the canvas by creating a small hole. And he's asking about how the camera lens reacts if the projector is shining directly onto it. Well, again, that's the point about using an ultra short throw projector, because the angle of light is so acute, and therefore you can set the camera back, just far enough and then shade it to stop that happening. But it's a great point. Someone's asking about when the UX standard is coming out. Where we're at with it is that the main standard is almost ready for technical review. There are two phases with standard. We go through a technical review where we kind of send it out to interested parties, crash test it, and we can revise it a bit more. Then it goes out to public review before it gets published. We're also doing a guide for that. I honestly don't think it'll be shown until it'll be published until probably summer or fall or autumn. David Sidebottom, he is making he's got some very specific questions about putting the camera in the canvas. I won't go into that now, but that's really very interesting. Okay, well, look, we've still got. Let me just see who we've still got on the call. I think I've exhausted what I can usefully add to the occasion now. A lot of my friends are very loyally still on the call. Very nice to see all of you. But I'm going to sign off now. So again, the final sign off. That's been a really pleasurable experience for me, and I hope it's been at least half as pleasurable for everyone else. I think this is a massively important topic. I'm still learning myself about it, but I hope that some of the aspects and the specifics that have been troubling me and exercising me, I hope that's been helpful to you. Please, anyone contact me with any help at any stage at all. 1 second. Yep. So Chris Burrows, I will send you some Excel sheets as well. I'll make a note of that, and or any sheets that anyone wants, please just ask me. But Chris, I will make sure specifically that you get that. So we're only about 10 minutes after the hour, but thanks everyone who did stay on. It's been a real blast, and I'm actually already in my head planning the next one, and please look out for that. Bye-bye.